And we have made it up to the All-Star break, so that means it is time for a little mid-season update on the season, going over the standings, player stats around the league, all that good stuff, anything else feels necessary. So let's just hop straight into it. First things first, the standings starting off in the NL East. You've got the Washington Nationals leading the division with the Phillies and the Mets still in the running. Mets have not taken a giant leap with Mookie Betts now on their team. In the National League Central, you've got the Pirates sitting in first place, while the Cardinals and the Reds are both still in it, also in the hunt for the wild card, which we will get into a little bit later. And then the Cubs and the Brewers are both having down years. The Brewers having a very down year, as they are just nowhere near it anymore. They are just not good at all. In the National League West, of course, the Dodgers are leading the division as usual. We are in second just like we were last year, but we really have no shot at the division. But what we do have is a shot at the wild card. Our team has been performing quite well so far in the season, at least well enough to be within the hunt for the wild card. We are only 3.5 games out of that. The Phillies and Mets are cemented as 1-2 at the moment, while the Cardinals are 1 game behind them, and then we're behind the Cardinals. So basically, we need a very strong month of July in order to stick around and compete for this wild card spot. But if we stink after the All-Star break and we start really falling off there, which you do have a decently tough schedule aside from the Baltimore Orioles. So if we do fall off after the All-Star break, if we stink it up and we're no longer in the hunt, then we'll end up being sellers at the trade deadline. But if we come out of the gate strong out of the All-Star break and we keep it up and we're still like 3, 2, 4 games out of it, then we're probably going to at least try to get something to help our team out. Not going to go out and just trade our top prospect or something, because we're not like in contention for like a World Series, I don't think. But that is the idea that I have going into the month of July. And now taking a look at the American League, you've got the East, who of course is being led by the Yankees, and then the Red Sox 3.5 games behind them. The Rays having another good year, but also getting shafted by the AL East yet again, while the Blue Jays and the Orioles are both predictably just shit-tier teams. In the AL Central, I know it's a shocker, but Cleveland leads the division quite easily. They really don't have anybody near them. They're just going to win the division yet again. And then in the American League West, you've got the Astros, who are having a rebound year. They were actually under 500 last year, having a good rebound year this year as they're back in the top of the AL West, while the A's are 3.5 games behind them. While the Angels and the Mariners don't really have a shot at the division, they do have a shot at the wild card. While the Red Sox and A's are at 1-2 right now, the Rays, the Angels, the Mariners, and even the Twins are still on the hunt for that American League wild card. Now let's move on to some of our players' stats on the Giants. Leading the team in OPS among everyday players who have been playing every day since opening day is Aaron Altair with an 8.74 OPS. He's got 16 home runs, 13 stolen bases. He has been a very solid player for us. I've been very impressed by his abilities to be our center fielder. So he's a guy who probably will return for at least next season. I might look into extending him at the deadline. We will get more into that around the deadline. Buster Posey is still doing his thing, 8.53 OPS, a solid bounce-back year for him as he did not have the greatest season last year, but he is having a great year this year, and the plan for him heading into the offseason is probably I'm going to give him a qualifying offer, and then if he accepts it, we get another year of Buster Posey for cheaper than he's making currently, but if he declines it, then Joey Bart will officially get the catcher job, and we get another draft pick for Posey declining our qualifying offer. Jock Peterson has also been a solid signing, an 8.02 OPS. He has been mainly playing against right-handed pitching because he is a lefty who can't really hit against lefties, and he has been doing his job. 8.02 OPS, like I said, solid signing from Jock Peterson for this year and next. Shane Peterson with a T actually has the highest OPS on our team overall, not as many as bats as the rest of the players, but he still has a 948 OPS through 95 ABs. He has been very impressive at the plate since coming up from AAA. As I mentioned multiple times now, Shane Peterson led the PCL in OPS in 2020. He was leading the PCL in OPS to start off 2021, so I figured, hey, why not give this guy a shot at the big leagues? And he has continued to hit. and if he continues to perform like this, he could just play himself into being the starting first baseman next year as well, at least against right-handed pitching, because as of right now, against left-handed pitching, it is Seth Mejias Breen, who has recently been called up from AAA. He's only got 12 at-bats so far, but he does have a 946 OPS through those 12 ABs, and he is playing first base against left-handed pitching, like I said. Both Beer and Fuentes were sent down to AAA. They weren't really getting it done at the first base position, and since we're still in it, or at least we have a shot to still be in it, heading into the deadline, I wanted to get the maximum production at first base that we could, so I figured, hey, why not have Peterson play against righties? He's been raking, and then why not have Breen come up and play against lefties, because that was what the platoon was in AAA, and they were both just tearing it up in AAA. Also, why not see what we have in Seth Mejias Breen? Also the same thought process by why this next guy is on the Major League roster in Peter Mooney. He is actually playing the everyday second base position, as Franklin Barreto was sent down to AAA for now. He was our everyday shortstop, while Yamada was playing second base, and now Yamada is actually being able to play shortstop. Not a shortstop by trade, technically. I added shortstop to his secondary position because I figured if he's a sure-handed second baseman, he should be at least semi-capable of playing shortstop. But anyway, Peter Mooney is playing there every day at second base. So far in the major leagues, he has a 917 OPS, but that's only through 22 ABs, and he was another guy who was raking down in AAA. So I figured might as well give him a shot since Barreto and Yamada aren't really hitting. Obviously, Yamada is still on the team because I'm hoping he can turn it around. He was the best bat on our team last year, but we'll get into his stats a bit later on. And hopefully Peter Mooney can continue to hit at the major league level as well as he was in the AAA. Robbie Grossman is still just a solid leadoff guy. He is in the last year of his deal. He definitely won't be back next year because we do want to open up another outfield spot on the roster. But as of this year, he is being a solid leadoff guy for us. And one of the reasons why we want to open up another outfield spot is we want to get guys like Elliot Ramos more ABs. He's got a 783 OPS through 139 ABs in the season. He started off pretty slow, but he's been picking it up as of late. He's getting on base plenty. He's hitting a lot of singles. He just really hasn't been hitting any doubles or home runs this season, so you do want to see that pick up and his OPS get into the 800s, and I'm sure that'll all come around as he continues to progress in his career. Now on to Ryan Schimpf, who is not having a typical Ryan Schimpf season for us. He only has a 762 OPS. He still has 15 home runs at the All-Star break. He just hasn't been one of the best bats on the team as he usually is for us, at least what he was in the first two seasons of the Giants franchise. This might actually be the last year of Ryan Schimpf on the Giants. He still does have team control for, I believe, like 1 or 2 more seasons, so we might sign him and then trade him in the offseason. We'll have to see how things shake out, but that is definitely an option that is on the table, because like I mentioned in the last prospect profile, I do plan on trying to go after a big-name middle infielder in the offseason. And speaking of middle infielders, we have Tetsudo Yamada, who has been very disappointing at the plate this season. He was the best bat on our team in the 2020 campaign, but he only has a even 700 OPS so far this season. He was signed to a very, very cheap extension, so hopefully he can turn things around and pick things up to what he was doing similar to last year. But even if he doesn't, and he's just sort of like a bench player for us, I mean, he's only signed to like 1.7 mil or whatever it is, so it's not like he's breaking the bank. And like I mentioned, with Schimpf, we are going to be going after a top middle infielder free agent in the offseason. That is the plan. Guys like Frankie Lindor, Corey Seager, Javier Baez, I believe Trevor Story. Those are all names who could potentially be free agents in the upcoming offseason. So we would just be not a good GM if we didn't try to go after at least one of those guys. Now we've also got Brandon Crawford, who got off to a really hot start to the season, but he has cooled off significantly. His OPS is down to 720. This will be the last year of Brandon Crawford on the Giants. He is the final year of his contract. I doubt he gets traded at the deadline, even if we are sellers. He's just going to be sticking around as like a guy who gets decent amount of playing time at shortstop. And then taking a look at Joey Bart, who has not been productive offensively at all this season. He has 8 home runs, but it's almost as if he only hits home runs. He doesn't walk Doesn't hit singles, doesn't hit doubles. He just, whenever he comes to the plate, he either like strikes out or like pops up or hits a home run. Now I'm hoping his offensive production is a result of him just being a rookie plus not playing every day, and I'm hoping that maybe once he takes over the #1 catcher spot, he'll perform much better. But even though he has been struggling at the major league level, his ratings across the board are continuing to go up, so you do like to see that, and hopefully Joey Bart can have a much better second half, and then if he does end up as our everyday catcher next season, or starting catcher, because obviously catchers don't play every single day, hopefully he'll be able to take it in a stride and be a pretty productive offensive and defensive catcher for us next season. Now onto the pitching side of things, you've got Johnny Cueto, who has been pitching like an absolute ace for us. Johnny Baseball has still got it. He's got a 2.54 ERA with a 3.08 FIP. That is a 3 WAR, the highest on our team. And he's in the last year of an expensive contract. So we are in contention, like I said, for the wild card. Still in contention, and if we do maintain a contention heading into that deadline, he is going to be a big reason why we are like that. But if we are out of it by the deadline, I'll look to get something for him. Something. Obviously, we're going to have to take on another big contract, which will probably just be up at the end of the season as well, and then hopefully we can get like at least a decent prospect for him as well in a trade. But that is the plan with Johnny Cueto heading into the deadline. Then, of course, we also have Derek Rodriguez, who has also been pitching like an ace this season, a 2.11 ERA with a 3.20 FIP, a 2.6 WAR. He's had a great ERA and a great FIP this season. In 2019, he had a great ERA, but he had a decent FIP. And then in 2020, he just had pretty much an all-around disappointing season. And then this year, he's been just all-around great. And then we have Tyler Anderson, who has been the stopgap in the rotation that we wanted. We signed him to a 2-year deal last offseason, and he is having a decent year yet again. 3.26 ERA, 4.41 FIP. He's had 2 decent years for us, and then hopefully he can pitch well for us the rest of the season, and then once the offseason comes around, he will be with a different team, whatever team decides to sign him. Then we also have the other Anderson in Sean Anderson, who is in his first full year in the rotation. He's been okay. He's got a 4.58 ERA, a 4.90 FIP. Definitely not great, but he has shown flashes of brilliance. He is still improving as a player, so hopefully he can continue to improve, and his ERA and his FIP will continue to go down as his career progresses. And then we've also got Sean Jelly, who has a pretty good solid rookie season. He's got a solid but misleading ERA of 2.76 because his FIP is 4.42. So still a solid year for Sean Jelly, but you do want to see that FIP go down a little bit. And now on the bullpen side of things, you've got Josh James, who has been much better than last season. He started the year last year in the Major League bullpen, walked a ton of guys, gave up a ton of runs, then spent the rest of the year in AAA, and it looked like that helped him because he had a very big boost to his walks per 9 rating after dominating in AAA, and that has really helped him because he's striking at a bunch of hitters this year, hasn't really had any control issues at all. His ERA and his FIP, still not ideally where I'd like it to be, but it wasn't like the 8 ERA that he had last year for us, so it's definitely progress. Then we've got Trevor Gott, who, since the bullpen has been really the main weak spot this year, we don't really have any solidified bullpen guys, he has been our 8th inning guy, which he's having a decent year, nothing special. He's just sort of a guy in the bullpen that we have who is probably like one of the more proven bullpen members. We've also got Tanner Scott, who is actually having a pretty good year, but you wouldn't be able to tell that based on whenever he comes into games that you see in the videos, because he's, for just whatever reason, one of those guys who will pitch well in the sim. He's a pretty good pitcher on paper, but for whatever reason, I just absolutely stink with him in game. I think it's because of his wind-up, his stretch, whatever you want to call it. I can't get the timing down. Whatever it may be, I'm just not good with him in game. I might look into tinkering with his actual stretch, because I'm sure it's not actually accurate, because like 95% of the stances and windups and stretches in this game aren't accurate at all. And then you've got TJ Trejo, who has been having a decent year. He's doing his thing where he strikes at everybody, and he also has not had a walk issue either. He just hasn't quite been the elite reliever that we think he could be. But he is continuing to develop, so hopefully maybe next season or the year after that, he can really take that step into being a elite reliever for us and one of the better members of our bullpen. Then, of course, we've got Reyes Moronta, who never seems to have a good ERA or FIP, but he has absolutely filthy stuff. He doesn't have quite bad of a control issue as some of the other guys that we have throughout our organization, but it's still not an ideal amount of control. So I'm hoping that Reyes Moronta can really have, like, an actual good season maybe next season, because, like I said, the ERA and the FIP has never really been truly where we would like it to be, or where it should be with a guy who is sometimes up to like a 90 overall based on his morale. And then we've got the two guys who we got from the Yankees, Tommy Kahnle, aka Tommy Tight Pants, aka Tommy Leg Day, aka Tommy Kahoozie. He's only pitched 7 2/3 innings, but he's been good over those 7 2/3 innings. And if he's solid for the rest of the year, he will definitely be a part of the bullpen next year as well. He's got a nasty fastball, sits around 98 to 100 miles an hour, and he's also got a nasty changeup. And then there's also Chaz Rowe, who has only pitched 13 innings since coming over, but he definitely hasn't been what he was for the Yankees in 2020. And then to round things out on the stats part, we've got Ray Black, who has only pitched 9 1/3 innings since being called up, but he definitely hasn't been impressive. His main issue is that even though he does throw 100 to 101 miles an hour, he doesn't really have any other good pitches aside from that heater that he has. Now let's take a look at both the National League and the American League All-Star teams. In the National League, on the starting pitcher side, you've got Johnny Cueto and Derek Rodriguez made it for us. On the relief pitcher, it was Joakim Soria of the Reds. The closers, top guy there, Will Smith, former Giant. Starting catcher in the All-Star game was our catcher in Buster Posey. Matt Adams was the starting first baseman. Second baseman, Brian Dozier, both from the Nationals. Nolan Arenado of the Rockies at third base. The shortstop was Trey Turner, also a Nationals infielder, made it. Ronald Acuna Jr. for his left field. Center field was Lorenzo Cain, and then right field was Cody Bellinger. And now on the American League side of things, you've got the starter for them being the former Giant and Madison Bumgarner, the relief pitcher from Toronto, Thomas Pannone, however you say his name. He was also the AL reliever last season in the All-Star game. There you have the closers in the American League side. The catcher is Gary Sanchez, first base Carlos Santana, second base Jose Altuve, third base Alex Bregman, shortstop Frankie Lindor, left field JD Martinez, center field Mike Trout, and then right field is Nick Castellanos. And now taking a look around at some of the league leaders on our team, we've got Buster Posey, who leads the National League in both average and OBP, while he also is the 4th highest WAR among National League hitters. And then on the pitching side of things, we got Johnny Cueto, who has the 3rd highest WAR among National League pitchers. He has tied for the most complete games. He has 2 of those on the year. He also has the most innings pitched in the National League. He has the lowest WHIP, and he has the 5th lowest ERA, while Derek Rodriguez has the 3rd. And he is also listed among the Cy Young contenders as well. Now taking a look throughout the rest of our organization, we've got Gilberto Fuentes, who, as we mentioned, is in AAA right now. He is hitting well down there, but he only had a 623 OPS in the big leagues. Definitely not the last you're seeing of him in the bigs. He'll be back at some point this season even. Seth Beer, also, he'll be back in at least September call-ups. He was not hitting the greatest in the major leagues, 693 OPS. He will be back, both of these guys, at some point in the major leagues. And then Ray Black is actually going to be sent down to AAA, and Carson Fulmer, who has been great in AAA, will be getting called up to the big league bullpen. He's a guy who hasn't really gotten a shot. We're going to see what he can do at the major league level. And then also in AAA, we've got guys like Braylon Marquez and Jay Groom, who have both been pitching well in AAA as of lately. Braylon Marquez has been pitching well all season long, while Jay Groom got off to a shaky start to the year. I would expect to see both of them for September. They're for sure both going to be on the roster in September because they're both already on the 40-man roster. But you might actually see Braylon Marquez make a spot start or two before the September call-ups as well. And you might see both of them after the trade deadline if we can't stay in the hunt and say Cueto gets traded, then they might both have spots in the rotation. But with that being said, that is going to wrap things up here for this edition of the San Francisco Giants franchise, the All-Star Break Midseason Update Edition. I've been your host, Jersey Born, and I am saying, banana bread at work, bro?